Oh.
And we are live. Okay, I'm very sorry, people. This is a very off-the-cuff hangout. I should have prepared better, but you know what? I'm late home from work, so this is why we're also starting later. Today's topic is going to be abortions. And Short Story is here, John is here, and maybe other people will join us during the talks. I don't know. But we're going to talk about abortion. Are we pro? Are we con? And why? So I could start talking, but John is typing along anyway, so maybe John wants to say something as well.
I'm eating.
Right. He's also eating, so he can't say anything. Short Story, you want to start this one off?
No, you start.
Okay, I will start. I'm going to talk about abortions, and whether I am in favor of it or I am against it will all be made clear soon. But why did I start with this topic? Well, some of you may have seen the latest video I made where feminists are complaining about abortion, and they do so by dressing themselves in the Handmaid's Tales outfit, the outfit of the handmaids. And what are the handmaids? Well, it's a series. It's based on a book. They are basically slaves. They are forced to be pregnant and to have children. And somehow, in a dystopian world where women are forced to have children if they can, because not all of them can, this is a good argument for abortion. I can't understand this. But yeah, it's feminist, so they are pretty stupid. I made this video. Someone basically argued with me that, yeah, but abortion is good. Well, not in those words, but basically it came on to that one. So I thought I'm going to make a video on the topic, but I came home late from work today and I'm like, fuck, it's Wednesday, I need to have a hangout. You know what? Let's talk about abortions. So this is the why of the story. And first off, everyone is welcome to join in. Now, there's not a lot of people, so I don't know who will join in. Hi there, Davey and Alicia. But my original point, abortions. Are we in favor? Well, I'm not going to talk about anyone else, but personally, I'm not really in favor of abortions. I'm not against them too. And that's the thing. I'm nuanced on this position because there is more to it than being for or against. And this is why I have such a big problem with feminists who are in favor of abortion no matter what. I think there are plenty of reasons why you shouldn't abort your child. But I see that Alicia finally joined in as well. Alicia, do you want to say something?
Hey, Alicia.
Hey guys. No, I love Handmaid's Tale. It's such a great propaganda piece, but I still love it. I still love watching it. It's crazy. It's really, I don't know why the SJWs like it after the last season, because I don't know, it's the main character. We just found out that she stole her husband's, so she's married to a black man, this white woman. And the black man was married to a black woman, and the white woman stole her man. And I was like, well, that's not very SJW. So,
but that's the thing, though. Because if I look at The Handmaid's Tale, and I have to admit, I haven't seen much of it because, sorry, I don't care. But if I do look at it, there are several women in that show. There are women who can't get babies, and there are women in power. And there are women who can't get babies, but they're not really in power. And then there are women who can get babies, but they are obviously not in power. Am I seeing this correct so far?
Yeah, you have like different classes of people. So you have the chicks that are married to the quasi-fascists, right? They have all the power, so they get to take care of the babies. But it's all based off of, sorry, I didn't mean to eat that candy. It's all based off of the Bible, right? So it's the Bible, and how I can't remember if it's whoever in the Bible, whoever married Rachel, and Rachel couldn't have a baby, and so he had sex with a younger person. That's what it's based off of. But yeah, the handmaids, though, they get the right to kill people in a circle. So
Yeah, well, but that's the thing. And I'm like, if you're truly a feminist, you're more likely to be one of those dressed in green, one of those leading women, than one of those women dressed in red. I don't understand.
I don't think the feminists would actually be the ones dressed in green. That's the whole point. Is that when you get further down the wormhole in the series, it would be more of the highly religious women that were like stay-at-home moms would be the ones that are in charge, and then the feminists would be cleaning the house of the woman that was religious.
Yeah, maybe. But the
No,
way
I mean, like that would be like if it really happened in like some weird dystopian thing.
Yeah, well, in all fairness, I think if there ever comes a time that men and women are in a dystopian world where not all women will get pregnant, I personally think that the women that can get pregnant will become the leaders, because that's an immense power.
Well, it happened in you can look at the history of America, right? So when we had like in Alaska or like in places in the West where there weren't a lot of women were like treasured. And so the Handmaid's Tale is there's no way it would be like that, because you know that the strongest men would be like protecting a woman that could have a baby. So it's not even logical. The scenario is not logical, but because it wouldn't happen.
It's downright stupid.
Yeah.
That's the thing. But yeah, anyway, The Handmaid's Tale gave me a reason to say, well, it's stupid that feminists are protesting abortion. And they're using the Handmaid's Tale costume. But then again, they're also protesting Kavanaugh in the Handmaid's Tale costume. And I'm not really sure what that has to do with the Handmaid's Tale anyway. But am I stupid to say it seems that a lot of people in America don't understand abortion?
Yeah, well, it used to not be the way that it is now. So it used to be, okay, you give women a choice, but now it's turned in from a choice to abortion on demand. And if you don't believe in abortion, you're evil, backwards, blah, 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 blah. But I don't know, it's such a hot topic, isn't it? Like it's like talking about racism and I don't know, it's just so crazy, the polarization on abortion.
Well, yes. And one of the things that I found particularly stupid, and I see if I can find the image. Yes, I can. Okay, I'm moving you there, and I'm moving you there. If you look at the numbers, because as soon as you start talking, well, maybe we should limit abortion in a way, the first thing people will say, yeah, but what about the rape victims? That's always the argument when we say, like, okay, you know what? I'm not against abortion, but I think we're a little bit too liberal about abortion. Maybe we should limit it somewhat. The first thing people will tell you, yeah, but what about the rape victims? Am I misunderstanding this?
No, and this is exactly why it took me actually quite some time to realize that I'm not pro-abortion, is because whenever, and that indoctrination actually started when we had these talks in high school, right? Whenever we had the subject of abortion, it was brought always the most, terrible example, the most unlucky people that got raped or would give the birth to a baby that would have terrible disease, or the mother would probably die or lose sight or something like that. Those are exactly always brought. So that is one of the reasons why it took me quite some time to figure out that I'm not really pro-abortion. I understand there are some reasons for it. I'm not saying that there is absolutely never ever a reason to do it, but indeed, because they bring always this example, you feel at some point you are bombarded with that example. So you feel at some point, yeah, well, yeah, maybe actually you have to be pro-abortion because this or that. We don't have any more. We don't have a rules for it, but we also don't have indeed the thinking. Okay, those are exceptions. They can occur. Those are dreadful situations, but most of the situations and most of the abortions that are actually done are not because of those examples. Most of the numbers you will see are not, most abortions don't come to women that would die or got raped. Most abortions are demanded by the women who just weren't careful.
But I think they.
Oh, sorry. Go on. Go on.
No, I was just gonna say what would be fair is if we released like a birth control pill for men. I think that would solve this entire abortion issue.
You think?
I think that, well, yeah, because men. So why do girls get pregnant? Because men don't want to wear a condom, right?
But that's not really true, though.
Well, no, I'm just saying. So the majority in America, the majority of kids that I see get pregnant are because they don't take birth control for one reason or another, and then the man doesn't wear a condom. But I'm wondering if there was a birth control pill for men, how the feminists would freak out, and what that would do to the dynamics of a new conversation. Because what if men could enjoy having sex without a condom and they just had to take a pill? What would happen then?
Well, that's an interesting question, and unfortunately I have no idea.
We'd see a little bit less homosexuality for one.
I said.
Maybe. I'm the same, by the way. But what I find really interesting is that I understand you when you say, well, it would be nice if there was a pill for men. But men can wear a condom, women can take the pill. Now, condoms can
but
break.
Not all women can take the pill. That's the problem.
I understand. And the pill can fail, condoms can break. All of these things are true.
Yeah.
But in all fairness, if I assume if I were a woman and my partner doesn't want to have sex with me unless it's unprotected, then either I am sure that we're going to have a family, or I'm not going to have sex with him. Am I so wrong in thinking that way?
I'm gonna say is that we're all older, right? So we're all older, and you have to remember, who's the majority of people that have abortions? It's younger people, isn't it? So we're taking it from the aspect of, so you're 16, 17, 18, 19. They don't have brains fully developed.
But
so
isn't that another reason why we should be more careful with throwing around abortions?
Oh, I agree. I think the problem is that we've made something that should have never been a political issue, that should have really been something that was, very discreet, has turned into this political issue. And so now it's hard to, because I used to be I was so pro-abortion, so for abortion, no matter, I was just there. And then I had one moment where, I go down to Las Vegas, I see the human show and everything. And then I actually see the babies. And then I felt like I lost my religion almost, in a way. But
sorry, go on.
No, I think what if we showed in school, what if as part of birth control, they actually show what babies look like in the womb, actually show it?
Well, that might work for some. I'm totally on board with that. But I also think that it won't work with several women that now take abortions, because they're so fucking entitled that they don't even think as their own baby as a human being.
Oh, I know. Have you seen, I watched this one video where this lady, she was saying that, God, I was so grotesque. She was saying that the baby had no moral no rights to live because they weren't born yet. God, I should try to find the video because it disgusted me so much. And the lady believed everything that she was saying. She was basically saying because the mom doesn't want to have the baby, that means the baby doesn't have any moral standing in the world or something like that. It was really fucked up. It was really bad.
It seems that these are the attitudes that are being pushed by well, I don't say feminists because let's be honest, there are feminists who are very much pro-life. But the pro-choicers, a lot of the pro-choicers are very much in favor of abortion because of abortion. It's not even, the whole idea of a child means nothing to them. This is sickening, I guess.
But what's for me is a little bit like a puzzle, and maybe it is a really stupid question, but so we had like old days, like days when when I look at Poland, right? Like my grandparents, my parents still, they didn't have a sexual education, and basically, if you ended up pregnant, you better had a father because the times were dreadful for a woman that didn't have a good reason for not having father for her baby. I mean, a good reason was that the father died. Then people would be looking less terrible at you. But basically, you had to have a father, right? So if they ended up pregnant, a lot of forced marriages, a lot of unhappy marriages. I'm not saying it was better. I'm not saying it was worse. It's a really complicated issue. And somehow I look at even a generation of my father and my mother and my father, it was like that. And I look at already my generation, what we got taught at school, and even the next generation. And we came from one extreme to the other in a way. We came from extreme that, you're not sexually educated, you are getting pregnant and you're forced most of the time to marry the guy, to marry the woman. And we came very fast to the other extreme when you are sexually educated, but you're not held responsible at all, do whatever the fuck you want. There is abortion, you don't need a father, you don't need a mother, you can leave the mother, you don't need to marry the father. And what I'm asking myself sometimes is that how come that in such a short time we came from one extreme to the other, if that makes sense to you guys?
Oh, it makes perfect sense. I was saying that to Devin the other day, how it seems like we had this one tiny sliver where we had everything right, and then it shifted really quick. We've seen it with like just about everything, like with racism, abortion. We went from people just saying, okay, it's okay to have premarital sex, they're not pushing it, to now, how many people have you slept with? 1,000. Well, gee, get on that. You need more. Yeah, no, it's true. It's a great question. How did we go from one extreme to the other so quickly?
Well, I know that I think it's Camille Paglia.
Yeah, that sounds right.
I can still remember having seen one of her many interviews where she basically said when she was going to university, there used to be a curfew for women. Not so much for men, but there used to be a curfew for women. And a lot of women complained about that because they wanted to be able to go out and have sex and come home at whatever time they wanted. And they actually fought for that right, which I think is maybe not the best ideas, but okay, I mean, it's a right you can have. At the same time, she is now complaining that feminism has gone so stupid when it comes to sex that every woman now complains about sex. If they don't want it, they were raped. And she's like, "What? This is the freedom we fought for." And I see the same thing happening with abortions. Women want abortions because, well, I mean, yeah, you wanted to have sex, but a kid, I want the fun, but I don't want the responsibility. And as soon as I don't like it anymore, others need to make sure that this doesn't happen to me. I want to have free sex, but if I don't like the sex with a guy, then it was rape. I want to have free sex, but if I get pregnant, then I want an abortion because I don't want to have the consequences of my choice.
Yeah, and this is look. There is something that Jordan Peterson said in one of his lectures to a student, which I watched, and he said something like, "Okay, both genders have its difficulties, and one difficulty for a woman is that she needs to really solve the more difficult problems in her life sooner, right? Because you need to decide you want to have a career, you want to have an education nowadays, and you need to set up the family. So the guy has a little bit more time on this one, and at the same time, which I agree with him on that one, and at the same time, I think we just don't raise our children and also a woman to mature faster, because you would, in old days, like even at school when I was still going to school, I still remember saying like girls mature faster than boys. But I think also that we've gone so far with raising a girls like you the perfect no matter what, you my little princess, and I really get sick when a father saying stuff like, if he touches you, he has a very fucking big problem, without ever actually looking from the other point, like, why did he touch me? Did you actually make it, make him think you want to have sex? They don't teach that responsibility anymore. I've seen so many times a father being this protector to the girl, basically saying that the dude is fucked if he does something wrong, without ever talking to the girl that there is a certain things you don't do or you don't say, and there are certain situations you don't put yourself in if you don't want to have a sex with a guy. So I don't know if we just older people were raised differently, when at one point they didn't have that sexual education, but they were still held responsible for their actions. I don't know if that makes sense, but
well, how many people actually have abortions? Hasn't abortion rates like steadily decreased? Or am I wrong on that?
I will look up the numbers. I'm sorry, I haven't prepared this stream that well, so I will look it up real fast.
Because what I'm looking at is I'm trying to look at the demographics. I could find demographics in America, and it's strange because it's showing that the highest rate of abortion is 40 per 1,000 women. Obviously, that's high in the 20 to 24, but it doesn't seem as high as it used to be. But they were saying demographically, this is weird. The highest rate of abortion in America is in the Northeast, whereas the lowest rate is in the Midwest. Which
that could be true.
So it goes with. Well, what I've noticed too with all these demographics is like, so wherever you have the most, the strictest gun laws, right? Mm-hmm. Suicide rates go down, but homicide rates go up. And then where you have not strict gun laws, the suicide rate goes up, but the homicide rate goes down. So I don't know if it like any kind of correlation, but it might go along with, because we're different. We're not as crammed and cramped in the Midwest as compared to the East. I hear it's like way crowded and it's just city. And
I think it's not so much a crowded thing. I think it's more of a society thing, because a society that has more rules, funny enough, is a freer and safer society than a society that has more, well, I have to say this correctly because it's not a question of more. If we look at, for example, what a lot of people now call liberal societies, like New York, Chicago, California, on average, they have a shitload of laws. But most of these laws are to protect certain ideas. If we look at the Midwest, they have a lot of laws, but they have less laws governing the way you are to behave. And with that comes more freedom, but also more responsibility. And when a person gets responsibility, they will try to be able to carry that responsibility. But the more responsibility you take away from a person, the more infantile you basically treat them, the more they will become what you want from them. So they will become less free. They will become more infantile. This is not an intellect thing, by the way. This is a behavioral thing. And hi there, Carlos.
Hi, Carlos.
Hello, everyone.
Does it make sense what I just said?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Or should I explain it in a different way?
No. I think, yeah. I mean, I don't know, like, what if we're all wrong? What if it's just, what if it's something else? That's what, I don't know. I wish I knew, because all I know is that going from being pro-abortion to just like, it shocked my system. And I would just like to find a way to make it so it doesn't even have to be an issue. I wish that's where everybody would go towards is what can we do to make it so abortion doesn't have to be an issue.
Well,
like,
the thing is, I don't mind the saying abortion. There are good reasons for an abortion, but there are only a handful of good reasons for an abortion. You are correct, by the way. I looked it up. Abortion numbers in the USA did go down. The last numbers I can find are from 2014, but 2014 they had a little more than 900,000 abortions, when in 2011 they still had a little over 1 million abortions. So
1 million abortions? 1 million? 1 million? There's not even
time in New York. I'm sorry interrupting you, but at this point in time in New York, there are more black kids aborted than born.
Well, that's a problem with their community. I don't know. I think women, see, I still, so it's just, the problem is that I can see why the feminists get upset, because having a baby affects a woman more than it affects a man. Mm-hmm. A woman is completely vulnerable when she's pregnant, and the man can just walk away whenever the fuck he wants. I mean, that's the way our society is. A man can just walk away.
Yeah.
You know? And he can still send money. That's not, it doesn't matter if he's forced to pay money. He still walked away. And the amount of energy and time that you have to put into that baby falls on the shoulder of the woman.
Fair enough, but just like I said, it's something wrong with our education of women if they want abortions. There's something wrong with the education of our men if they want to walk away from their children. We're doing something wrong in our education, in our raising of our children, if they think that abandoning their physical offspring is acceptable.
Well, what if they're leaving because they can't be around her? What if she's like crazy? Well, I guess that makes it worse, but I don't know. I don't have the answer. I just know that I feel bad that the feminists.
Alicia, what you're forgetting is that the state, since the mid-60s in America, has incentivized women to get rid of their men.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The whole welfare system is predicated on single women.
But we're talking about this like it's a weird collective thing, and I only think that's true. All the single women that I've known throughout my life. Very few of them actually do get on welfare. And it might be a Utah thing, right? So they don't get on welfare. So then the state isn't incentivizing them. And yet they're still, either a single mother or aborted.
70% of black children are born to single mothers.
Well, yes, that is their community. It's because they've been taught. Yeah.
No, not taught. It's come from this welfare system. Because before the welfare system, there were fewer black children born to single parents than white children, and now it's massively reversed.
Yeah, it's rather true, unfortunately, that the welfare system has had a huge impact on a black family in specific, but unfortunately on the white family as well, because we see a decline in the white family as well, and we see the same thing with the number of abortions. I mean, yes, they're on a decline, but still, at this point in time, and we're not even at the end of the year, but at this point in time, there are already over 650,000 abortions in the US alone. And the year isn't over yet. Now, hopefully we will stay well below 1 million in the USA, but at the same time, 600,000. And most of these abortions are convenience abortions. Even though people don't like to admit it, I can show the numbers in a moment, but these are convenience abortions.
But there are two things I see, to be honest. Look, two things. First, again, something that that Peterson said, that, for example, when we look at the teenagers especially, but when you look at the man and at the woman, she tends to be more nervous about having sex, because to her sex poses greater threat, so to speak, danger, because indeed, as you said, Alicia, if I get pregnant, I cannot walk away from it other than have an abortion, and abortion is already a dreadful thing. So, if you a little bit put up together well psychologically, you don't want to have an unwanted pregnancy, you don't want to have an abortion, right? Then came the new times when relatively speaking, when we said, okay, here you have a pill, you can basically decide if you get pregnant or not. And then there came the times when we also said, hey, now, even if you're pregnant, you can decide if you want a baby or not. So you sort of took away that danger in a stupid way, because you still shouldn't say, oh, okay, then I have abortion, of course, but that's what it became. But the other thing is as well that, because at one point I understand when people say, yeah, but welfare, and now, the mommy doesn't need the daddy, she can leave him, whatever. But at the same time, if you talk to people older, 50, 60, 70, 80 years old, because the welfare wasn't there, yes, it make, father maybe stay, mother stay with the father, but the amount of marriages that were called unhappy, terrible, were really, so to speak, huge. I hear also from older people. So it seems like we didn't get it right back then, and we're not getting it right now.
I agree. I love the last part of your statement, because what I think, what I think the problem is that we never address that these things came into being for a reason. John says that all the time about socialism. There's obviously a reason they came into being. And I think about what percentage of people are just god-awful parents, because being in the foster care system, I've known kids that probably would have been, and mind you, I'm against abortion now, but I guarantee they would have been better off to have never been born, right? So we have that to address. And it's such a complex issue, and we don't, the feminists address it like it's disgusting, but yet the religious people, like the highly from back in, the 40s, 50s, when you couldn't even have birth control pills, they were just as bad. You know, if a girl got pregnant, they shipped her off to some nunnery. She was forced to give up her baby that was given to strangers. I mean, that's not cool either.
No, or you are forced, forced marriage, which is terrible cold. But the problem is that this is what I said at the beginning, that how come we've gone so fast from, forcing two people to get married because they got pregnant, and they got pregnant because they didn't have any really sexual education. We just didn't speak of those things until they happen. Yeah. And we didn't really see you would expect that when we started to talk about sexual education, and then the pill was introduced as well, that you would have the longer time that people would actually stay in a sort of, okay, it's still not good if it's very not good if you get pregnant now, because you actually can stop it, right? I have only Dutch word right now. You can actually make sure it won't happen. If it happens, well, it should happen at lower rate, and then, okay, we will figure out what to do, and have very little welfare to really those exceptions that, you always have them. But it happened tremendously fast from one extreme to the other. And I'm still thinking, was it the postmodernist, that saw that window and really used it, and we got education so fast in such a wrong way? Because I don't know how to explain that.
Yeah, I'm exactly where you're at. As a woman, I think it affects me, like, when I'm thinking about it, because I can see all sides of it, and it's just frightening. But how did we go from that forced adoptions and forced marriages and stuff to everybody just screw everybody, and there's abortion on demand and no responsibility. Yeah, I don't know what the fuck happened.
Well, people want to live lives of maximum happiness and minimum pain, basically.
Well, funny enough,
I think that generally leads to more lax laws over time in every society.
Unfortunately, I think you're correct on that, and I will show the numbers in a moment. But I first want to go back to something else that's being said. I'm not in favor of forced adoption. Don't get me wrong. I'm not in favor of forced adoption. But to me, that's still a better idea than abortion. Because there are plenty of people. I mean, now in the Western world, we've got a lot of people who want to adopt children, and they go to not China, but they go to Asia, they go to the Middle East, they go to Africa. But they would be better off if they could adopt someone from their own culture.
Oh, there's right now, today, there's 100,000 children in the United States waiting to be adopted, but there's no suitable parents. Because in order to adopt in the United States, they have to do a background check, and a lot of people don't pass background checks anymore because of the very problem we're talking about, because of improprieties when they were younger. And so it's kind of like we've set up a weird society.
But that's weird, because they can go to foreign countries and adopt, but they can't adopt in America?
Well, it's a good thing. So what they do is, if you're adopting, you can't have any kind of, you can't be a pedophile.
Well, yeah, I can understand that.
I would agree with that. But what they also do is they allow for your juvenile records to be opened. So they'll open your juvenile records. So if you did anything as a child, you can't adopt either. So, I mean, it's a good thing. It's just that the people that are waiting to be adopted aren't what people want to adopt. So how good is our system that 100,000, children are right now able to be adopted, and these so-called loving parents won't adopt them because they're not the right.
Yeah. It's not enough that you're an orphan. You also have to be desirable in some way. You have to. You have to fulfill certain tick boxes that people have.
Yeah. And funnily enough, though, and maybe this is where they came up with white male privilege, white male babies are always one of the highest in demand. One of the highest in demand, which is good. You guys got to have something, right? You don't have anything anymore. You might as well have something.
We have video games.
But this is the thing I don't understand, because I can't find the numbers. I've been looking for them. I'm sorry, I can't find the numbers. But I know, because I've had these numbers, that black children are more likely to be adopted by white parents in America than by black parents. And that's something I don't understand.
But isn't it...
Black families are less likely to adopt children than white families, even if they cannot get children of their own.
Well, so I think there's something all of us are missing, and I would love, like, I've talked to some women in the Black community, and there was a strong breakdown of the family, and you can't adopt if you're single. You have to be extremely rich, and Black women are having a hard time finding partners. I have
because they're undesirable.
Well, it's because they wanted to marry a Black man. So now they're teaching Black women that, maybe it's time you step out of your box. And so they're trying to see about dating other, races, colors of skin.
It depends on the income level. I mean, if you're talking about inner city people, generally independence is a bad idea. If you're that low on an income level, you need to rely upon people. And I think that maybe in education, an overemphasis on individuality and independence might play a part in that.
I have to strongly disagree with that statement.
I'm sorry, I missed half of that.
Can you repeat?
Can you repeat?
Okay. People. When you're at a very low income level, you need to rely on other people to help. This is generally, people can move in together, they're roommates, and they need to rely upon each other. And I think that in a lot of cases, marriage can be thought of as something similar to that. It's communication for mutual benefit.
I can agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's living together and doing things for one another for mutual benefit.
Yeah.
In lower income levels, I think if you teach people that to be independent and that marriage and family is not a good thing, I think that if they grow up with that ideal, that it'll be a real detriment to them, because they won't rely on other people so much. They will want to be independent, and they won't be as well off.
Well, see, now we're doing the circular thing again. And this is why I said I disagree with it, because you have to go back and see what happened like in the 60s and 70s. So the 60s and 70s, you have a woman that was married to a man, right? So she's married to a man. She shoots out 3 or 4 kids, and then the man disappears. And she has no education because she only has a high school degree. She has no way of taking care of herself. She can't leave the kids home alone, but she doesn't have any money for daycare. So there was an actual need for it. So they teach us to be independent.
You have to think about why the desertion of the male occurred. And that's what I'm thinking about.
Well, there is something seriously wrong in the Western world. The devaluation of husbands, the way that the court systems is set up against husbands. These are all things that make normal relationship counterproductive. And if I look, for example, in the Netherlands, and I'm not sure how this is in America, I'm not sure how this is in most countries, but in the Netherlands, I am a single earner. I make all the money in this household. That's okay. My wife takes care of our son. That's fine. The thing is, I pay more taxes than a household that has 2 income earners. And there is a problem. And I'm not sure how this is in America, but In the Netherlands, our tax system is based on man and woman both working. And you can't have a stable house if everyone in the house needs to work.
I'm sorry, but one thing that I wanted to point out, and this is something Alicia said, that she would have 4 children, and then the husband would go away, and she couldn't take care of basically herself and the children. And then you sent us why the desertion occurred, which I understand after 1 kid, but not after 3 or 4. That's the thing. What happened that you would make your family as a man, not only as a woman, but also as a man, so large to 3, 4 children and then go. You know, it's like, okay, 1 kid, it was a mistake. You are a freaking bitch. I can't stand to be around you. Not perfect, but okay, 4 of them.
But it happens all the time. I'm just saying from experience. I when I was 20 years old, I used to dread turning 40. My age right now. I feared the age I am right now. Because so I live in a society. I'm one of the few out of all of you guys, unless you live in Utah, you guys don't have actual people that have a lot of children, right? It's gone now. That shit's gone. But you'd have women that were Mormons, stay-at-home wives, and for some reason the guy would turn 40 and some little beautiful little 20, somebody my age comes along. I'm not kidding you. It's actual. I mean, you got see. I know that. So it's hard. So I can talk about this, right? Because it is true. It is fact.
I understand.
So then these women, they didn't even. I don't even know what. They didn't even have a high school diploma. They're my age now. They're working at a damn restaurant making shit. They've got all these kids. Yeah, sure, they'll get child support eventually after it's 2 years in court. But the fact is that, again, it goes back to we went from one extreme to another, and I have no idea what's happened. But maybe it's just that 30% of the population is shitty.
Could it be that all of a sudden, sorry, Carlos, go on, because you didn't have
I have a neighbor. She's my age, 48, 49. She has 6 kids, so I know what it is. I know from as well.
But could it be that we all of a sudden started to, because I've noticed that in Poland at some point when I was still living in Poland, that all of a sudden the people who were, I think, mediocre psychologists and just could write the book and someone would publish them, that we all of a sudden really started to talk like, are you really happy in life, and this and that, be happy, think about yourself, you deserve this, you deserve that, so that people would get more entitled. And then at some point, you know, those 40-year-old guy who had, you know, issues with the wives, and the wives probably had an issue with the husband, because it's always that way. You always have some issues with each other and to work on it and repair it constantly, right? All of a sudden would like, oh, I never considered that I could just leave and just, you know, think really for myself, and they would just like, that would also cause a lot of situations like that, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it's as if they're teaching people that the key to happiness is to make it so that no one is reliant upon you.
Yeah, I still remember, and that was terrible. I still remember a member of my family a few years ago, and she's really into psychology and whatever. And we didn't have a kid back then with my husband. Didn't even think we would. And she told me, I remember, that she thinks I need to be more assertive and more thinking about myself, and do I want to have a CD of some female psychologist, and this is quoting because I will never forget what she said, this is a psychologist that teaches you how to be happy so that you are happy, not your husband, not your mother-in-law, not your neighbor, just so you can be happy. And then I remember, because she has 2 children, and then I remember to say to her, you know what, I said, no, thank you, I don't want it, and you know what, I think it's a shitty advice, so, well, I teach myself how I'm supposed to be happy and only me. Then I give it to my husband so he can get the advice how he and only he can be happy in a relationship. And maybe into that beautiful family, we bring a child. But a lot of things like that popped up somewhere in, I don't know, 90s, 2000, like that. And it's really shitty. If that makes sense.
I'm reading the comment thread, and I don't know if I should be a part of this discussion, because so my daughter had a child out of wedlock. The man was, I'm just glad she lives here, and so yeah, I think I'm gonna bow out of this conversation.
Oh, but I don't know why you shouldn't be part of this conversation. Why do you think you shouldn't be part of the conversation?
I just explained it because I was reading the comment section.
Yeah, but I'm reading it too. I don't understand why you feel that you shouldn't be part of the conversation. Because I think, whether I agree with you or not, I think you have something very important to say. The one thing I don't want the House of Fun to be is an echo chamber.
Yeah.
So if people disagree with you, that's another reason for me to say, please stay.
And I don't see that.
I love that you made your voice echo when you said echo chamber.
No, I didn't feel like you only blamed the men. And the thing is, and this is something that I don't like a little bit amongst YouTubers. I really don't. It's like there are the feminists who will blame the men for absolutely everything, right? And then there are people who are opposing feminism, but at the same time,
they blame the woman for absolutely everything.
Yes, and for example, when no, I'm sorry, both genders have their issues.
It's just that I actually see that. So I have my daughter had a child out of wedlock. We had to get a restraining order against the man. He went and he's off abusing someone else now. So we decided to be responsible as a family. So we all take on the responsibility without, the welfare state. But on the other hand, I just helped my brother-in-law against my own sister get custody of his kids because he was the right parent. So I'm seeing it from both sides. There's shitty fucking people out there. There really are. I mean, we all act like there's not genuinely shitty people out there.
Listen, I work in healthcare. I can 100% agree with you. But
they do shit, and we're acting like there's obviously a problem because we've been doing the same cycle for since recorded history, where it either goes from one extreme to the other, and maybe it's because we don't take it by an individual type basis and understand that human beings have feelings and human beings make mistakes, and we never approach it from that scenario. We just look at it we see the banshing harpies on one side, and then we see on the other side these men that are pissed at women, that should be pissed at women, but then maybe it's just cyclical. And so I feel bad discussing it because I can't, it breaks my heart when people think that it's only raising your children that makes it so they don't have a baby out of wedlock. But there's women that can't take birth control or any of those. And so naturally people that are in that situation, they feel like shit. So they don't want to talk about it because it's the parents' fault that the kid got pregnant. Well, why isn't it the boy's fault for not putting on the fucking condom? We're all blaming women here, but all these men, they're also not putting on a fucking condom. Why are all these fucking men not putting on a condom?
Alicia, okay, I understand, but here's the problem. The MRM looks at this all the time, and women have so many methods of birth control. They have abortion. They have safe haven, so they can just give up the child. Men have nothing. And
then why aren't you putting on a condom?
No, don't shout. You say they can just walk away. No, they can't. There are men who are proven to not even be the father, who are now court mandated to pay for 18 years. There was a child of 12 who was raped by his teacher, who has got 18 years of child support to find. So it's not that men can just walk away, because the state ensures they can't.
Yeah, I agree with you, John, but I'm going to throw something else out there. If a girl is raped at 12, 13, 14, 15, and she sends the guy away to jail, in my state, that guy that raped that girl gets to have custody and visitation of the children. So it's both of us are in the wrong. We both males and females have fucked each other over.
Alicia, I understand you, and I understand that this becomes emotional to you, that this is close to home. This is not about how women are bad or how men are bad. This is how our society is bad. We can't decide all people are a monolith, because we're not. There are men out there who are terrible fathers. There are women out there who are terrible mothers. We cannot see everyone as a monolith. So if, for example, you talk about how your own daughter kept the child, came to live with you, and you're trying to raise each other because the man was terrible, all the power to you. I wish more people were like you and like your daughter, because it's difficult for her as well. But unfortunately, there are also other situations. This isn't a male-female situation, unlike how many people make it sound like that. And maybe I'm partly to blame for that as well. It's not a male-female situation, but it is a caring situation. Whether we care of our offsprings. No, don't get me wrong. One of the reasons why my wife and I, we didn't have a child. I mean, our son got born 3 years ago. One of the reasons we didn't have a child sooner than that was because I was afraid whether I could be a good dad or not. And I think more people should at least think like that.
I agree with that.
Not that they're bad dads, but they should be. Having a child is not an accident.
You
But
think
it's also,
any? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I think any change of life that is sufficient needs to be gone about with the greatest amount of apprehension.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And part of the problem I'm seeing now, sorry I have my mouth full, I thought Shane would speak a bit more. Anyway, back to my original topic, because this was about abortion, or this is about abortion. We as a society need to put more value on our offspring. And this is not something men need to do for women or women need to do for men. This is something we as a society need to do. And for that, we need to be careful on when do we allow abortions. I'm not saying we should disallow abortions. I'm not against abortions. But I am against abortions as birth control. There is
as I am as well, yeah.
Yeah, thank you,
Coach. Before, yeah.
But that doesn't mean that I think it's all the women's fault or it's all the man's fault, because that's simply not true.
No, I do think that, first of all, again, that's the thing we got from, like, for my parents' age, it's normal like 20, 22, and when you have a child or two already and you're married and you live together, right? And when you have a child at 20 or two children at 20, now for my age already, you would be a slut. So that's the shift. But I agree on that with Mod. I think we need to also like encourage this responsibility and simply communicating with one with another. When you have a couple, either you are 17, either you are 20, or you are 30, you need to be aware you can have a children and what then, right? And couples don't do that. And yeah, women have a lot of anti-conception options, and a lot of, you know, like John said, safe haven and this and that. Guy can have only condom. Well, I understand, for example, John, you say that, but thinking at the same time, why don't we teach our boys, okay, woman is more protected, you will have to pay the money, so you know what? It's even more the reason that you think about having condoms.
I quite agree, Sam.
And we should also teach the girls simply like it will affect you the most. You have to carry the baby for 9 months. You have to give it a birth. Either you choose for adoption, abortion, or give it a birth and keep the baby. It will change your life tremendously. But I don't have a feeling we actually are teaching children that.
No, first, alcohol and hormones are two factors. It's not like somebody goes, right, shall we have sex tonight? Oh yeah, it's the drunken hookup is not going to help matters.
Yeah, but John, I understand that, and I was young and stupid once too, and I actually see how great education I got to actually not sit and pray about the pregnancy test, not knowing which guy would be the daddy. And that doesn't mean that the hormones didn't drive me crazy or that I wasn't stupidly drunk, but I actually meant mostly that I got really great education from my parents. And to be honest, one of the priests at school I had that would make a great conversation with us about life, about family, not to actually indoctrinate us, I see it more and more, but to make us think for ourselves and realize that some things are really a big deal.
Yeah.
So,
but we've had 50 years of telling girls, especially, that they are responsible for nothing.
Yeah. And this is also what I say, what I'm also, I'm sick when I see a fathers treating their little girls like a little princess, because they also are, in a way, failing their daughters. Yeah. Because they are those protectors. If you touch my daughter, you know, I fucking kill you. Maybe I ask why he touched her. You know, talk to your daughter what she shouldn't do or say. We don't have that.
Yeah, well, you're also missing the daughter who touches him.
Yeah, of course.
Because this is part of the problem I have with the conversation. It's all directed as stop the boy, stop the boy, stop the boy.
No, that's
no, I don't.
No, but there is so much of the conversation that is like that.
Yeah, but that's why I'm trying to. That's why I'm trying to keep both Elisa in this. But you know me, I don't see the problem to be only boys as well. So we need to look further than boy and girl. I really think we need to look at our society at large.
Well, can I make a really controversial suggestion for where the problem lies?
Yeah, go on.
The nuclear family.
How is the nuclear family the reason?
Okay. We used to live in communities. And in communities, you have people mix, and you're with people of all ages, and you experience life in much more richness and variety. When you become people living in their little semi-detached houses, isolated from each other, only associating for decades with people close to their own age, people now start to hit that age of relationship and children, having been isolated from the whole family thing for decades. And you lose so much knowledge so quickly in humanity when you change your society and the way of passing on all sorts of informal understanding.
So you would agree with the action of Pericles, who I think it was who called in all the houses of the noble families from the countryside and resettled them in the city of Athens. You think that was a smart? You would agree with him and think that was a clever idea.
I don't see what that's got to do with anything. If people live in the countryside, often live in communities. communities, villages, for instance.
I think people also live in the countryside on their own, and
Yeah, but
individual when you're talking about individual family units, you're talking about.
I'm talking about communities. In this country, we used to have communities like streets where everyone knew each other. They're in and out of each other's houses, and the children just played together. And you know, it's not about being 22, having gone through your school, and the only people you know are the people in that couple of years around you, and then you go through college and only know the people in the couple of years around you, and it's very restricting to your outlook and experience of life. And I'm not proposing a solution. I'm merely trying to identify a problem.
Sorry. I'm sorry. I was trying to compare what you were saying to what other people throughout history.
No, I'm merely saying that I have noticed for a long time that there are a lot of problems that seem to result from isolation in certain key social aspects. And this is one of them. People now start to have their children without any proximity to people who know how to have children and bring them up. Because you used to be with your relatives, your older sisters, your aunts, your grandparents, you know, and we operate much better on a bigger scale than just the nuclear family is what I'm trying to get at.
I'm not really sure if I agree that the nuclear family is part of the problem.
I was joking about that. I was doing that as clickbait.
Ah, all right.
There's nothing wrong with the nuclear family. It's the isolation of the nuclear family from a wider community.
Because in all fairness, if I look at society at large, I see one of the main problems our society is facing, and abortion is definitely part of that, is the breakdown of the nuclear family.
Yeah.
One of the most dangerous things I would say about our society is that being on the internet is more fun, much more fun than interacting with real people.
This is true.
In person.
Sorry to interrupt. I'm going to bed, guys. I've not contributed too much because everything's been said really, really well, and I would just be superfluous if I added anything else. You guys, this is so interesting. I'm going to see the rest of it tomorrow because, wow. But as I said, I could not add anything of quality, so I decided to stay silent most of the time. So thank you all. I gotta go to work tomorrow, and I love you all, and good night.
Good night, Carlos. Thank you for coming, mate. I hope to see you next week.
Good night, all. Thank you for being here.
Your presence alone adds quality to this stream.
Thank you, St. Clair. Thank you. I love you all, guys. See you tomorrow, guys. See you.
Sleep well, mate.
I just wanted to interject because I think I understand what has happened in the world is that it's not just the breakdown of nuclear families or anything like that. I think it has to do with traditions. Like, so my family, we have a tradition where we do Thanksgiving together. If anyone's seen my videos, you see how much food I make, and we all get together so that we can have family time together. And we do that with our kids' birthday parties. We have really big birthday parties, and we have Christmas together, and we do as many things together as possible. And it's probably the culture in Utah. It's a good thing. But I know that my daughter was dating a guy from like Michigan or something, and he came here and he was living here, and he didn't have the same, like, the adults just wanted to go out and party instead of having like the family parties. It was just the adults wanted to party. And maybe that was a breakdown too, because nobody's having that family interaction anymore at all.
Yeah, and the one thing that St. Clair said, that hanging out online is more fun than in person. And first of all, how they put that trick on us, like say Facebook, Instagram, all the other, that, we will be more social, when in fact you just stay with your computer. But I also think that with the breakdown of nuclear family. But coming back to the abortion thing, I think we just got it for relatively short time, and we don't know. We are learning how to deal with it. It's like, okay, I'm going to give a stupid example because I don't know how to say it in English. For example, when I started to play video games really for the first time, right? So I would be like crazy about it, and it came, and that was this cool thing I could do, and that was this fantasy game, and I started to play really too much of it, and then I had to see like, no, okay, I can't, and I don't want to spend my life like that. So, you know, and I think it's a little bit like with all the social media and therefore breakdown of social life, but also things like abortion. We got this, and we sort of play with it, and we don't know yet what the rules are and what the consequences are. So I'm hoping, but it's a little bit sometimes seem to me as if it was the necessary phase, like when you're starting to do something new, or you get a new, I don't know, complicated thing, and you just don't know how to deal with it, you don't know what to do with it, you're learning that, and then you get the grip of it. Only in society it will take, yeah, way longer. If that made any sense. Because
I think what you're saying makes perfect sense. And, you know, maybe we should give our society at least some credit, right? We have, as a society, come a long way, at least as far as it comes to children. I always tell the story of the fact that child abuse, like extreme child abuse, we'll keep it, you know, there was no way of protecting children. It took somebody got a report from a dog being chained up, right? It came in and it was a child being chained up. So we at least have moved in the right direction of caring about kids, you know, but then we've backslid somehow.
I mean, I think we need to see the consequence. This is the difficult part. Like, you know, when I was playing too much Hall Raven, well, let's say that I'm still playing too much computer games, and that I see that my lives therefore doesn't work well, right? Let's assume that it's not like that. Don't freak out, but let's assume my kid is not well taken care of, and there are other things that could be done, and maybe I could have a job, but I don't. So I need to, I sort of need to, very often I need someone to point that out to me, and I need to see it for myself, right? Okay, this isn't working out, right? These are the consequences. This is that much that I'm gaining, that little that I'm gaining from that computer game, for example, and that many things are going wrong. So I need to see it in order to change it and say, okay, I don't want that many things in my life go wrong, blah, blah, blah. And the solution to that is. And I think it's also with the society, people don't see easily the bigger picture. I'm not saying that I'm seeing it. What I'm trying to say is that people don't know what it means, that many abortions for a society. People don't know what it means going so irresponsible about getting pregnant or not getting pregnant for a society as a whole. And I'm fearing that we just need to see more consequence of that.
You're worried that there aren't enough consequences of our actions.
No. I'm worried that we don't, more of the society don't see it yet.
Well, they do silence. So I didn't know a lot about abortion. Like, if you think about it, we actually don't know much about it. I didn't know that a lot of women, after they have an abortion, get extremely depressed. They don't have resources. They go into a downward spiral. I think the reason we've gone in this downward spiral is because they're not showing both sides of the story. Because the only thing, like you were saying in school, the only thing I learned in school was that abortion is good. It helps keep society true and makes better responsible parents. But they don't tell you that these girls get depressed. They don't tell you that they get injured. They don't tell you that there's deaths. They don't tell you they don't even show you what that a baby literally has like fingernails.
Yeah,
Fingernails.
you see, I got that knowledge from school.
They don't teach that in school. They just teach about STDs and, you know, abortions are good.
They expect people to have sex, and they want the people doing it to be as protected as possible. They don't necessarily care about the unborn. It's a weird moral area, and I'm not gonna judge it, but that seems to be the case here.
But that's unfortunately that's what neo-Marxism, postmodernism does. It's the destruction of the nuclear family, and not so much the nuclear family in a traditional Christian way. But I mean, I'm not Christian, but I still understand the use of the nuclear family. And even though I understand it, I'm not a good example of it, because nuclear families, you're a nuclei, so you should work with others. That's the whole idea of the nuclear family.
I absolutely love that. Most people think it has to do with the 1950s and the Cold War. It doesn't have to do with that.
It has nothing to do with that.
I thought it's sorry, I joined in stealth mode to flap my wings. I thought nuclear family means just to break down the big family to just the nucleus of just parents and one child, 1.5 child.
See, in Dutch translated, it basically boils down to that the family is the cornerstone of society. Nuclear family is based on nuclei, and you need many nuclei to form something. And
like a cornerstone.
That's weird. I learned that differently. Maybe I'm ill-informed. I thought nuclear family is telling the grandparents to fuck off and just getting a new house.
But that's the problem, Real Raven, because that's what it became.
Yeah, all right.
Real, because we were taught you've got the extended family,
yeah,
and you've got the nuclear family, and the nuclear family is the smaller unit without the extended part. That's how.
And that was before they said that fathers aren't necessary either. So now the nuclear family is basically just the mom, the kids, and the state.
Yeah,
just a proton.
Yeah, exactly. Free radical.
But somehow, and I know it sounds.
What's Alicia's take?
Sorry, what?
What's Alicia's take on the nuclear family? I wonder what the American take is.
I didn't. I heard the term offhand personally, but I thought nuclear family was just mom, dad, and kids. So I didn't realize that it was basing the entire society around it. I kind of like that concept. That sounds great. It really does sound great. Can we go back?
Only Dutch people know that.
Can we go back to the nuclear family, please? Because that's how my family works, and we have 3 generations here. I mean, think about it.
And that's not a nuclear family. I thought that's like.
Actually, it's 3 nuclear families living really close together. But the whole idea.
That's a molecular. That's a molecular family.
It's an extended family.
Society.
That's why the nuclear family is in contrast to wider society, because nuclear family is just the parents and the children. And little else.
I'm sorry, but that's not what it was meant to mean in sociological terms.
We're not talking sociology.
We're talking etymology, and etymology is nucleus is the kernel, right? So the kernel is what's needed. It's the seed, you know, the kernel, and the nucleus. Okay, I understand your concept of many nuclei coming together to form like society, but the nucleus is the smallest unit.
Can we all at least agree that an individual family living in a single household being isolated from their neighbors is generally not a good thing?
No, but that's not how societies used to work. I mean, you had
it's only changed.
That was my point I made ages ago. Was that exact point?
Exactly. But that was the invention of the nuclear family, to going away from the big family into this small thing, you know.
No, because in the beginning of the nuclear family, you had a street full of nuclear families who would barbecue together.
But you're defining a thing by by you had many of these things, and that defined the thing. I don't understand.
No, it was called the nuclear.
It's like a village,
family.
You say nuclear family because it was in a village, right?
No, it wasn't because it was in a village. It was because you needed many nuclear families
Modwain,
to build a society.
No, I'm sorry.
Disagrees with you.
It doesn't make sense.
Family, elementary family or conjugal family is a family group consisting of two parents and their children. It is in contrast to a single parent family, to the larger extended family, and to a family with more than two parents.
Yes, I understand what it means and how people call it now, but the whole idea of a nuclear family, society is based on nuclear families. But the nuclear family,
the problem is if you're using the word differently to
it's based.
Modwain.
Okay, guys, I would love to make my point, but then please let me make my point. No, society isn't based on tribes.
You could say that as well, though, couldn't you?
Yeah, you could, but that's not the thing. The thing is, society is based on the smallest unit. The smallest unit is supposed to be
humans.
The gene. Society is based on genes. There.
I really would love to finish a sentence for a change, guys. Come on. Or do I need to mute you guys now? Come on. Society is based on its smallest member, so to speak, and the nuclear family was supposed to be the smallest member of society. And many nuclear families should interact with one another, and that is what creates society. An extended family is something else than a nuclear family, but a nuclear family is not supposed to be solitary. I mean, you can have plenty of nuclear families in a small area,
but according
with each other.
Wait.
According to who?
Wait. I want to interrupt because I think short story. I think I have another thing that might have been a reason why we've had this huge swing. My mother had 5 children, right? And so she was at the tail end of the sexual revolution when it hit Utah. So my dad and my mom were at the tail end of the sexual revolution. And they actually had a debate on whether or not they were going to have children at all, because my dad had told her that you don't have to have children anymore because the state will take care of you through Social Security when you retire. That might be a big problem, because I know in South Korea, that's where they've never thought of having welfare for older people, but they don't have, people aren't having babies anymore. So it used to be where the grandchild would take care of the grandparents when they were old, and the grandparents would take care of the grandchild while the parents went to work. And so maybe Social Security is to blame for this as well, because a lot of, like, my dad actually said to my mom that why have children when we don't have to have them take care of us when we're old?
I'm going to respond in a moment. One moment.
Not just that, and not just that. Social Security benefits can also be provided to you at any age if you can convince the government that you are disabled.
Okay, and I'm going to.
But it's passing the book.
No, I'm sorry, Real Raven. I'm going to, because I want to go back on what Alicia said. Because what Alicia said is very much the problem of the Western world. And how can we see that this is very much the problem of the Western world? Because we've created a society, or more or less tried to create a society, where all challenges are taken away. And this is the moment where, as I did in the past, I will do again, the Moustopia experiment fits in perfectly. What did we see in the Moustopia experiment? The more of the challenges that were taken away and the more safeties were given to the colony of mice in that small square meter, the more the mice would start dying off, because they didn't care for their children anymore, they didn't groom themselves anymore, and they basically died. It only took a few generations. Is this true for humans? Yes. We need challenges. As soon as the challenges are gone, or because government takes over, society starts failing. And this is, for example, why indeed it's a bad thing that our how do you call it? Society, our government takes care of the elderly and not their own children, because it takes away the need for elderly people when they were young to have children, and it also takes away the responsibility for children to take care of their parents in their time of need. And the fact that we let this happen is detrimental.
And couldn't agree more with you, both of you, Alicia and Maud. And there is one thing when I thought about the shift, right? And this is a little bit like, it seems it will be off topic, but I don't think it is. Because I think about the conversation I had not so long ago. And someone said to me that in the 50s, for example, or 40s, there were times, and I assume, I don't know if I can speak about other countries, but then again, the Netherlands, when the woman got pregnant, she had to stop working, right? And the husband will go work and the woman would stay at home. Now, a person who told me that is like 60 plus years old, right? And she, for example, sees it as only as a negative thing and against women, when I see it as a protection. I'm like, I'm so grateful I can stay with my son, right? And if I would now have another baby and yet another baby in a 2-3 years time, right? There is no time really for me anymore to become that engineer or something, because, well, women want to stand with the children. So the other thing is, I think in our society, look, women on average, different. Going to work has its difficulties, and staying at home with children have its difficulties, right? Women are more showing the emotions, are more emotional, and also are more likely to also complain about the problems they have. Men been always raised to basically suck it up and do what's necessary, right? And I really sometimes think that it made women talking about how difficult it is to raise the children, which and be at home with them and, you know, take care of the house, which sometimes it is. Men, on the other hand, they don't complain that much. They protecting the wife partly from complaining. They also, you know, they proud to be men. Suck it up, buttercup. You do whatever you need to do, right? And then the women got the idea at some point, maybe, that it's so much easier to go to work. Because I have a sometimes feeling that women who wanted to enter the workforces massively underestimated what it really means. So we started promoting like having children is something not ambitious and only a mother. You can be an engineer, you can be a scientist, you can go to the company, and women want to do it right now, right? Still underestimating what the competition really is. But therefore, we also don't want to have a children anymore because it's kind of in the way, if it makes any sense.
It's a funny thing, because I think that if we hadn't got the breakdown into smaller families, it would actually be more easier possible. You know, I remember just from my own anecdotal evidences that we grew up in a family where we had grandparents around, and both my parents were working full time, no problem.
Yeah, but back in the day.
But in order to allow that, obviously you need to also take on board that you may have to look after your grandchildren at some stage, yep, to give back.
Back in the days, there was a saying, and it's an English saying actually. So you don't have you do have an equivalent in Dutch, but in English, I think the saying was, "It takes a village to raise a child."
That's correct.
Yeah,
that's wise.
But this is how it used to be. And if I look at myself, when I was a kid...
80 years ago, yeah.
No, not 80 years ago. When I was a kid, and that's a little more than 40 years ago,
yeah.
I lived in a flat. My parents and there were other people living in that flat. But trust me, everyone in that flat was able to berate me. Not obviously, not always, but if I misbehaved or if they saw something that they needed to warn me about or whatever, not one of the people in my street, and I lived in a street with flats, so there was a lot of people there. Everyone was connected.
Yeah.
But we're not connected anymore.
I have a question to you, Mod. Because basically I had the same in Poland, right? I'm a bit younger than Mod, but Poland is really behind with everything. So I had the same. And my question is to you, look, how come there are two things I'm going to mention? For example, for my parents or my grandparents, right? It was normal for a woman to be 20, have 2 children and be already married. That was also normal in my parents' time. However, the same people, the same generation of people, my parents, nowadays will look weird and unhappy at the girl when she's 20 and pregnant, that it's too soon, but it was normal to them. And the same thing is also, like, I meet a lot of people older than you, so they had that kind of raising, yeah, they gone through that. When I, for example, talk to the young people that aren't my children, I sometimes heard things like that I'm bothering with not my business. And then someone told me, you know, when I talk to my grandkid about bad behavior, yeah, because it's close to my heart, but why would I bother to talk to that 16 years old? And I remember my answer was like, well, so when your kid enters the society as a young 20-year-old and he will be his colleague, his boss, his team leader, he's actually a decent human being instead of being a pig, so that your kid will have an easier time living with those people. But how come that the same people who gone through that now shifting the behavior so much? I mean, I would understand if we don't get it that much, the 20-year-old don't get that much, but people who go through the very thing are turning away from it.
Okay, I think this is mostly to do with the societies that we live in. A lot of people won't remember their own childhood, but they remember what they see on television. They pick up what society is supposed to be doing now. Don't mistake what I'm going to say now with an easy excuse, but people learn more behavior from television than from other human beings in the last, let's say, 30, 40 years.
Okay.
So there is that.
Okay.
And I interjected a moment ago with my story, but I'm sorry that it seems that I've taken over the whole thing.
But
see, the thing is that it's not men, women. I know feminists are for a very large part to blame in this, but in all fairness, I'm not even blaming all feminists or most feminists, because feminists can only have this power because of the people who allow them to have that power, which is something I never understood anyway. But if we bring it back to abortions, there is something we as a society need to do. Are we against abortions? Well, not really against it, but I'm not in favor of unlimited abortions or unregulated or whatever you want to call it. I'm very much against abortions as birth control.
Wait, are we talking about your opinions or the opinions of society? Because you said both.
My opinions.
Okay.
Sorry. When I talk about how I'm against the use of abortion for birth control, that's me. But our society is pushing the idea that abortion is not a problem. There are factually more people against abortions than in favor of unlimited abortion. Most people who are in favor of abortion will say, okay, I'm in favor of abortion when someone is sick, when someone got raped, when there is a physical reason.
But
most people will say, yeah, no, I'm against abortion as a form of birth control. But no one is ever allowed to talk about these nuances. Because as soon as you bring in the nuance, people will make it sound like you're against abortion.
Is there any way to bring in the nuance without accusing you of being against abortion?
I don't know.
Or without you thinking that I am? Because I want to talk about the morning after pill.
Well, that's a good way as well. That's a great way to prevent abortions.
That's true.
I have no problem with the morning after pill, to be honest.
But is the morning after pill an abortion in the form of birth control?
It is a form of. It's a form of birth control, yes, but I won't say it's a form of abortion. It's too early. Listen, in all fairness, the morning after pill only works, I think, up to 48 hours. No longer than that. If it's longer than that, the morning after pill won't do anything. In all fairness, most pregnancies in the first 48 hours are touch and go to begin with. There's a good chance that you might not become pregnant, even though the sperm reads the egg. So, yeah, the morning after pill, I don't see the morning after pill as an abortion.
Well, you'd have to go further and call the anti-baby pill also as a form of abortion.
Anti-baby pill?
Yeah, the pill, the
anti-conception.
The pill, because it also, what it does is basically preparing the uterus that in a way that the egg cannot nest in it, right? So even if the egg is being fertilized, it can't nest in it. So it can technically also be regarded as a form of abortion.
No,
because it
not
doesn't.
nested. It's not abortion.
Is a fertilized egg a person?
Yeah, but that's the thing. That's the thing. Where does it start? So it's a sliding scale, right?
Oh, I hate that conversation. I've tried it.
I know, but
there's no
tricky.
No solution.
Well, personally,
I know there's no solution. You have to. It's like with pedophilia or something. You know, you have to set a point. Say 3 months, 5 months, 4 months, 2 months. You know.
I'm sorry. Pedophilia is quite clear, to be honest.
I mean, you know, the age of consent. You know, you set a point. You know, through law or something.
There's a difference with. I think if it's teenager, you're a pederast. I'm not sure about that. I'm terrible with names, but. Alicia, can you still remember those words?
Yeah,
names?
Pederasty. Pederasty includes everything. It does.
Yeah,
it used to include
What I meant was consent, age of consent. That's what I meant.
The problem is you guys are getting it all mixed up. The age of consent is different than anything, but hebephilia, everybody thinks that means teenager, but it doesn't. It means very specifically they're going through puberty. So that's what you see with female teachers. They really like boys that are going through puberty, but once they become a man, it's done. Same thing with girls. They like that little bit of it's usually between 12 and 15.
Mm-hmm. Pederasty specifically was it started off as a Greek doctrine of and specifically in Crete, I think. Although it may have originated in Sparta. Crete and Sparta shared a lot of stuff in their early history, but pederasty was specifically a relationship between an older man and a teenage boy, and it was not only a homosexual relationship. It often was. It was also an apprenticeship.
But
yeah, it was all encompassing.
I think pedophilia is specifically preteen, right?
Yeah, pedophilia is specifically preteen, and then you have infantophilia. I don't know how to pronounce it. It's people that like 0 to 5. So you have 0 to 5, 6 to about 12, depending on, you know, whether or not they've started to actually hit puberty. And then you have the epiphile that's like when they're going through puberty, but it's literally they're going through puberty. Now, the problem that the reason why people, the age of consent is such a strong problem is that kids don't mature, their bodies mature fully before, like girls mature like 15, 16 fully, but their brains don't mature. And you can be charged with almost pedophilia, like just the term they use, child molestation, if you have sex with somebody that is like mentally retarded. because it's the mind aspect of it. And that's why everybody gets so confused, is because so between 15 and 25, you have a real issue right there. That's where all the infighting happens, is that part. And then the age difference. Sorry, go ahead, Raven.
Can I just circle it back, because I almost felt a bit sorry that it was taken into, that I used the wrong term, but it shows one thing, that it's very hard for the law to decide to make some kind of moral kind of judgments based on biological properties, as in that are dependent on age or like times, you know, to say, oh yeah, it's perfectly fine if you abort your baby after 3 weeks, but it's really, really bad when you do it after 4 weeks, you know, or and that's with the age of consent. Oh, it's perfectly fine if you have whatever in state 1, if you have intercourse when you're 17 years old, and in state in Germany it's 14, you know, and in France it's 15 or whatever, you know. And it's almost impossible to get it. You can't get it right. You can't get it right.
Well, no, I'm gonna disagree with you, Raven, because you can get it right if you have enough information. Like, if you have enough information, you could do a sliding scale. So if you have between 15, so you have 15 to 20, so you could say 15 to 18 can have relationships with each other, and then 16 to 19, 17 to 20. You could do it like that. Yep. Because then you don't have that same problem, because none of us really give a crap if 2 17-year-olds are having sex with each other. But if a 17-year-old is having sex with a 50-year-old, then we're like, whoa, back that shit up. So I think we understand that there's a reason why we put social pressures on it. And I think if we just refined it, we could do it. And that's what I think everybody's trying to do with abortion, is that it is refining it. Because I'm okay with abortion up to 28 days. Up to 28 days, and that's where I draw the line. 28 days. So let's try to sell that.
That's one line.
For all the reasons?
Oh, what are my reasons?
No. I'm asking after 28 days, but for all the reasons. Like, for example, I don't know, I'm, high pregnant, but I get really terrible news, and then like, oh, bad luck.
Extenuating circumstances.
Well, okay, so we have pregnancy tests now that you can test 5 days before you're even missed your period. Right? So who would use that test? Who use that test? Obviously women that want to have baby, or women that can't take birth control, right? And we're having more and more women unable to take birth control pill because of other things. But so
maybe they live in a household that doesn't allow it.
Oh, it doesn't allow sex? I don't even see that.
Yeah.
Well, that's a totally separate issue. I know the parents that kick the kids out when they're pregnant, that's kind of fucked up. Yeah.
But the thing is, and again, coming back to the point I was making earlier, and in a way, something that both you and Square Peg said, you try to teach your children to be responsible for whatever offspring they will have. And you talked about your daughter, Square Peg talked about her sons. I think it's very important that we return to a society where we actually care for our offspring. And if I look at this whole abortion thing, it is because we don't care for our offspring. And this sounds weird, but I wanted to share this maybe earlier, but we had a very good talk, so I'm going to share it now. Sorry. Come on, I said. There we go. Can you see my mouse? Yeah, you can see my mouse. This is a measurement done in 2004, and they asked women why they did an abortion. And there is more than one answer, because if you calculate all these numbers together, yes, it's more than 100%, because a person can have more than one reason. And you will see, this is the most important thing I'm going to say now. Rape, a victim of rape, is 1%. And that number has roughly stayed the same between 2004 and 1987. But if we look at the top one, having a baby would dramatically change my life. For more than 70%.
I'm sorry. Based on what I know about people, I believe that instantly.
Well, I agree. And I'm not going to say differently because we have a son. And yes, it drastically changed my life. But to say that that would be a reason to have him aborted, that would be ludicrous.
It depends on your philosophy. Given your philosophy, Modwain, that is ludicrous. But if somebody has a different set of beliefs, it might not be.
But
and I think it's fair to ask. I think it's fair to provide it as a possible answer. In any circumstance,
it is a possible answer. I'm not blaming the fact that this is a possible answer because this is the answer people gave. The problem
I mean, you have a ludicrous because of your value system, right? Your value system is different. I think that
no, it's not even my value system. That's the thing. No.
Yes, it is, Modwain.
No, it's not, and let me explain to you why.
Okay.
Because what people are saying is having a baby would dramatically change my life. Therefore, I don't want it. It's a choice out of not necessity, but out of luxury. Having a car accident will also dramatically change your life. Would that be the reason you don't want to have a car accident? No, you don't want to have a car accident because they are bad.
Well,
so you prevent getting a car accident.
It's very difficult to find. It's very difficult to find a reason to bar them from doing it. The only reason that you seem to be giving is that you don't like it.
Yeah.
No. I'm giving this reason because it's the highest scoring one. It's not that I don't like it. This is the society that we have created.
And you don't like it.
I wonder whether it's a good thing. I don't think it's a good thing. But at the same time, whether I like it or not doesn't make a difference. It's the factual thing that scares me. Because it's people are talking about luxury rather than necessity.
I think luxury that using that word a bit
it's a luxury that people pay for.
It's loss of control. If you think that control is a luxury, I would agree. But I think that people are under the illusion that they control their lives. No, and they don't want to lose that control. And that to a lot of people, that is not luxury.
But to be honest, I think I understand what Mod tries to say, because I still remember asking in my 20s some people, because I like to have this conversation about would you have abortion, and women that were back then like 30, maybe older, said, now I wouldn't have it anymore. But when I was 20, and if I would get pregnant, then I would think, I would get an abortion because I still want to have a life and go out. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, but what about trying hard not to get pregnant in the first place? And that's the difference when I see between, for example, Poland. I don't know how it's now in Poland, but Poland when I grew up, and like the Netherlands, indeed, people talking about luxuries, because in Poland, he wouldn't say, then I will have an abortion because I still want to have a life, because no one is going to pay for it. Society is not going to accept it. And you're going to think twice before you get pregnant, hopefully. And it is a luxury to say, no, but I want to study and I want to have life and I'm only 20 and I want to go out, so I have an abortion. It's a dreadful situation because...
I didn't understand. Pay for what?
Can I ask?
Pay for the abortion? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, there is another issue that I'm having with, that my taxes are going for abortions, not that are necessary, but that are just caused because, people are being stupid.
I don't know if I agree that abortion is a luxury. I believe that a safe abortion is a luxury of living in a civilized modern society.
that's what I wanted to finish.
This is the first time in history, the past few decades, where people have been able to perform abortions with relatively little risk to themselves. And history shows us that whenever, every single time that a new luxury is introduced to a society, they abuse it for the first few decades.
Yeah, but
and it tapers off. It tapers off. It becomes a fad with a smaller portion of the population.
But the problem is also, it's like, I understand and I use the word luxury myself. At the same time, let's not forget what Alicia said, for example, something I had at school, that we don't teach women the consequences of abortion. So yeah, I understand when Mo said luxury, right? But given still the consequences for a lot of women after they get abortion, well, it's not really that luxury anymore, but that's the other issue.
One thing, one context I would accept the term luxury under would be if you say it's a luxury to say, I don't have the child now, but I very likely will have one in 5 or 10 years time. You know, that you kind of plan it out and say, oh, I don't want it right now. I want one, but I don't want it now. Because I'd say that that's a reasonable, that is a possible stance to have. I don't know if you define it as reasonable.
In all fairness,
think about nobody really wants to have an abortion.
The thing is, there are women that actually
maybe they want to raise a child not in poverty. Maybe they want to buy the house first or whatever.
Saint, there are women out there that want to have an abortion. Unfortunately, but they are really there. And Real Raven, maybe I not have this child, maybe I will have one in a few years. There is a risk, and it's not huge, but it's still there, that after an abortion, a woman cannot bear children.
I know, that's ignorant.
And it should be underlined that can't afford a baby right now is number 2. That it is 73, 69%.
I'm sorry, I want to have kids in 5 years from now, we have anti-conception pills.
In fact, they're almost exactly the same percentage.
Well, if
you know that accidents can happen. You might have puked it out or whatever. It might not have worked. Nothing's 100%.
But in all fairness, if I look at nearly all answers above 30%, I mean the ones under 30%, I can say, you know what, I can somewhat relate to that. Mm-hmm. But most of them that are scoring higher than 30%, I'm like, this is ludicrous. This is.
And you would probably agree with the idea that abortion more than 28 days is murder, right? You think that it's
I wouldn't go for an abortion after I think first trimester it's called. I wouldn't go for an abortion after that. Hell, I'm not even that much in favor of an abortion before that time.
Do you believe that a person who committed an abortion after that has committed an immorality?
At a certain point in time, I can also say that a person before that has done an immoral action.
Okay. But this is very difficult question to answer, because, for example, you can say 28 days. 28 days is a month, right? But for example, I had special echo 3 months into pregnancy, and that would to see if the kid would be born in really terrible condition. For example, if I would hear that the kid is going to be born without the brain and only suffer for a week in terrible pain just to die, then I'm sorry, no. If I'm going to hear 5 months into a pregnancy that I probably die because something fucked up, I'm sorry, no. And especially having a kid already, I'm sorry, it's a no-go for me. So it's a very difficult question. And I am going to say, and this is also what Jordan Peterson said, but I know that actually from Leonard Cohen, in the massacre, there is no decent place to stand. And that's what Peterson also used in one of his lectures. But that's exactly how I always understood it. It's very difficult. It's very, like, I don't want to insult you or anything, but I really don't like the question. It's like, would you think after 28 days it's a murder? Is it moral thing to do? Well, depends on the situation, because you could argue I'm probably going to die and leave my 3-year-old alone without a mommy. It's all depends on the situation. You can't just put, really a marker for every pregnancy, I think. But then again, those reasons has to be genuine, not like, oh, I wanted a baby for 3 months, but now I somehow changed my mind. That's not a good reason.
Yeah, I mean,
specifically. Oh, sorry, go on.
Having a baby would dramatically change my life. The more I read that, the more it seems like a longhand for I'm not ready.
Yeah.
And it's very hard not to empathize with that.
No, it's very hard not to empathize with that, but that's still not a good reason for an abortion. I understand I'm not ready. I really do. I can appreciate I'm not ready. But if you're only going to do certain things when you're ready, most children wouldn't even leave the parents' basement.
I'm sorry. One thing, and I can also relate with I'm not ready. The thing is, that for a huge part of my life, I felt not ready. And therefore, I was really careful and made sure I'm using anticonception. And yes, I know not every woman can do it, but we have a lot of women who could do it, but they don't do it. And the one time that I actually thought I am pregnant, it turns I wasn't. It was scary as hell, but still I'm going to basically man up to it. And the thing is that when I actually was planning pregnancy and finally we got pregnant, it was just as scary and I was just not ready as hell. And a lot of women who were my friends and told me they were planning pregnancy and trying and wanted, and that the moment they actually got pregnant, they were scared and felt not ready, and it was overwhelming and dreadful for a certain amount of time.
Thank you for sharing that with me. I think I learned something.
The only thing I don't like about the that point of view, and I don't know, that just might be me, is that when you say, oh, you can use contraception, you're also not planning. It can fail, It can fail,
Yes, it can fail.
I'm going to answer this.
I think to then say, oh, you have no moral standpoint now to argue for abortion because you failed your contraception. That very much to me sounds like, well, there are women who use abortion as a contraceptive method, and I think that's ludicrous.
Unfortunately, it's not ludicrous.
Low intelligent women may do that, but you might do that once.
Well, wait, can I ask a question? I would like to ask a question. So here's a better way, I think, for men to understand it, right? For men to understand it. So if you have, let's say that you bang a girl at a party, she gets knocked up. You don't have a choice of what she does, and so I think to say I'm not ready for women, that's giving women more rights than men have, because a man doesn't even get a decision on whether or not to keep that child. And let's say that you super want the kid and then the chick has an abortion and you're just fucked with that. Or the chick wants to have the kid and you're like, holy shit. So everybody... Again, this is what I like about John. The first time he said, you got to stop gendering issues, I was kind of pissed about it. But the more I think about it, I like that idea, because I never thought of men's feelings on having children until my husband asked me to have a child. And I was taken aback by it, because I just assumed men didn't want children.
Alicia,
it was possible that men wanted children.
I feel ashamed now because you just gobsmacked me. I'm the MRA, and yet you express exactly it's exactly right. And I'm now swinging over to Modwain's side. Yes, it's ludicrous because it does ignore if if it is in a relationship, then it definitely ignores the guy's will or anything at all, and then it becomes a luxury because she can say, "Well, I'm not ready. Fuck you," and then it becomes ludicrous,
Because a lot of people seem to think that most abortions aren't done because of birth control reasons. I'm sorry, but even if a condom breaks, you can do something. I mean, when I was younger and I fucked around, and I won't lie, I did. I was a bastard. And I used my condom, and I checked my condom every single time. And the few times that a condom actually broke, both me and the one I fucked with didn't want a kid. So both me and the person I fucked with were at the apothecary the next day to get a morning after pill.
Well, then you weren't a bastard. You were responsible.
I was responsible. But this is the thing. And when we start talking about, but abortion doesn't happen that often, I just looked up the numbers in the US. This year already, the year isn't over yet. This year already, we're over 650,000 abortions. I'm sorry.
In Holland?
No, in the US.
US, all right.
In the US, we're over.
We're really good at it.
Well, fair enough. And yes, that's how we call it, Davey.
Trying to diffuse the tension.
No, but if we look, for example, and I've said this earlier, if we look, for example, in New York at this point in time, if a black woman is pregnant, the baby has a bigger chance of being aborted than born.
It probably also has a bigger chance of having no father than having one when it's born. Right?
Assuming the Christians are right, it'll live a much happier life being dead.
But this is a problem. Whether the father is there or not, whether the mother wants to be part of a family or not, isn't this a societal problem? I mean, we can laugh about it, we can make jokes about it, but isn't this a societal problem? And abortion is just one of the many things that are part of this problem.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I don't know if abortion itself needs to be fixed as a problem, but I do think that it is attached to things that are problems. I do think that there are societal problems in the way that families and individuals behave towards one another, and that this affects their decisions to have abortions or to not have abortions. But I don't think you need to change anything about how we handle abortions themselves. You have to change other things.
I really disagree with that, but I really wanted to address what Reed Levin said.
Can I?
Actually, I do.
Address ludicrous for a second?
Okay.
Okay, ludicrous. It's an industry, capitalism in action. You know what? You're wrong. You're correct that it's an industry, but it's not capitalism in action. If it were capitalism in action, governments wouldn't pay for it. Governments wouldn't subsidize it. If it were capitalism in action, yeah, okay, I'll still be against it, but you would be right. But at this point in time, it's not.
It doesn't matter whether it's private or public.
But I want to address actually two things. And first, I want to address what Reed Levin said, because you said at some point that, that the abortion, that the anti-conception might not work. And I understand that. But the thing is, and maybe it doesn't make any sense, and correct me if I'm wrong, I've met so many girls in my life that wouldn't take anti-conception pills, not because they couldn't, but because of easy access of abortion, or they would forgot to take anti-conception pill, but they still want to have a good time, and they would say really very easily, yeah, but I wanted to have a good time. It was Friday night. Seriously. And the one thing, and maybe I'm wrong about it, for a woman, when your anti-conception doesn't work, yeah, maybe there is an even little bit smaller chance that you would take abortion, because if you try to prevent pregnancy, you also try to prevent abortion. So you already see it as something you don't want to have. So you already thought about this, right? And you had the bad luck and it didn't work. But it's not like anti-conception doesn't work so massively. It's not like the anti-conception doesn't work so many times. It's a small amount of a small percentage that it's not going to work and small percentage that it doesn't work. But as I said, out of this percentage, there is a chance that those women would not go for abortion because they take so that they don't have a kid, but also abortion. And other thing I want to simply address that you said, St. Clair, that you don't think we have to change something about how we're handling abortion. I actually agree with something that Alicia said way earlier in the stream. I apologize. I don't know anymore if you were already in the stream. Like, we know only one side of abortion. We only know of this side of relieving and getting your life back. Let's say that it's not going to interfere with your studies. But we indeed don't teach young girls the possibility that they may be not being able to have a children, that they might get depression, which sometimes they cannot have a children because of the depression. I think education, actually lack of education on what abortion really is, it's really ridiculous. And to me, that's at least that what we should change, give the both sides of the story. Because whenever they try to educate me about the other side of the abortion, that dreadful side of the abortion, and one of our priests actually did, there was attack on him to try indoctrinate us because, well, of the religion, when now, years later, he actually said the truth without indoctrinating us, but he wanted us to know the other part, and that was always the problem.
Can I one thing, say something on the point you brought up about avoiding contraception in women? I think that that's a huge area we should haven't talked about, and that's your body knows when it wants to become pregnant. I've heard that from a lot of women who already had kids, you know. It's just like it wants to become pregnant, you know. It's not necessarily just under your control, under your conscious control. It's also under your body's control, you know. It wants it. Yeah. And so I wonder whether this can I just finish the thoughts? You can shoot me down in flames in a second, okay? I just heard of people.
Be ready to burn.
Yeah, okay, but can I finish at least? Thank you. So the thing is that I think that one point with this gambling is actually, yeah, you say you don't want a kid, but you don't take any precautions. So maybe subconsciously you want it, and then you look at the genetic material that you scored with, and then you decide, oh yeah, that's okay, then I'll go through with it. And there are lots of kids that are being like first kids mostly, that were accidents and that grew up perfectly, you know. They were like first kids, and yeah, you were an accident, you know, and we didn't abort you. Might have thought about, but we definitely didn't plan you. You were an accident, right? So that goes to, yeah. So that goes to that other area where it's not as clear cut, you know. It's not as clear cut as that you actually consciously know as a woman, okay, I want to get pregnant, or I don't want to get pregnant. It's sometimes you just let the body decide, you know. That's why I think it's ludicrous to say that, oh yeah, I'll just gamble, and then if it and I have a 1 in 10 chance that I won't conceive, and if I conceive, then I have an abortion as a contraceptive. It doesn't make any sense to me. Why would you have somebody go with a knife into your genitals as a planned version of God? It doesn't make sense to me. Maybe a man, maybe I'm too squeamish or something, you know. But how can you say that that's a form of contraception? It just doesn't make sense to me
either. But unfortunately, it is proven that this is what's actually happening. There are women that use birth control, that use abortions as a form of birth control. And not once. There are women out there who have done it several times. And this is something that is, to me, very problematic. But at the same time, where you say, well, women know when they want to get pregnant, I disagree with you on that one.
I'm saying women's bodies knows that the women don't know consciously. That's the thing.
I still disagree with you on that.
Good.
That's
we should ask the women, shouldn't we?
Well, fair enough, but it's about as ludicrous as to say that when you get raped, that your body shuts down that part. Which was something that I think it was a politician who said shit like that. No, when a woman gets raped and she doesn't want to get pregnant, the body shuts that part of the body down. No, that's not how it works. Your body is not an independent entity of you.
Who said that?
Me. You heard me say it right now.
No. Who said? What politician said that when a woman doesn't want to get pregnant, there's a part of the body that shuts that stuff down? Who said that?
Oh, that's.
Let me look it up because I can't.
That's ludicrous. All right, but that's not what I said. That's just like the most malicious way you could interpret what I said. That's not at all. It's like your sense of smell will tell you when somebody is genetically compatible with you, and that's also subconscious. And there's a huge amount of mechanisms in procreation that do not work on a conscious basis at all. You may say we are all super rational about everything, and women are super rational. I think that's just baloney, to be honest.
Are you arguing for something, or are you just giving out information?
No, it's just that Modwain said that if I understood him right, that what I said was ludicrous because some politician said that you can't get pregnant from a rape because the body decides.
I'm not saying that what you said is ludicrous because of what a politician said. I'm saying it's just as ludicrous as what that politician said.
Yeah, I disagree.
I disagree.
So you say I want to get pregnant and it just works. Yeah, it doesn't work like that.
I think I understand what Raven was trying to say. So an example of it would be if a girl's body. The girl's body wants to get pregnant every month, period. That's a fucking fact, right? And girls are not aware of all of the shit that they're doing. But so let's say a girl's body is really trying to get pregnant, because it does. That's what it does every month. Our breasts get really big and beautiful, and we get these nice rosy cheeks. And then you have men notice that, and so they're nice to you. So on a subconscious level, you're starting to notice that because you're fertile, you're more attractive. So you might not be aware that your body wants a baby, but what you want is the attention, but your body wants the baby. But you want the attention. And so then you get a little bit more frisky, you start showing your boobs a little bit more. So there's merit to what he's saying. He just didn't explain it in a way that was made sense to all of everybody.
Yeah. I think that's what I tried to say. Anyways, the thing with ovulation is that's one of the points, where we periodically get super fertile. The other one is that when you're trying to get a kid, that often doesn't work. Just like or just like in a relationship, right? We just omit contraception and bang, you're pregnant within a month. Doesn't work like that at all. You might have to relax into it. You might have to try. You might have. Yeah,
some people don't.
Or you might have to stop trying. Sometimes you might have to. So it's not as conscious as you. It's not ludicrous to say that it's not 100% or even 90% or 80% conscious thing that you make yourself go pregnant.
I'm not saying you make yourself go pregnant. I never said that. But it is. Yeah.
But it is ludicrous.
But no.
Sometimes sex is spontaneous.
It can be. But it's not whether sex is spontaneous, yes or no.
Pregnancies.
But you cannot get pregnant without it. So if you have sex, then pregnancy is always something that
On
could
the
come
cards.
from it.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
pretending that it's not the case, that's ludicrous. Anyway,
Yeah, I didn't say that.
I wonder, Modwain, if you would consider it an excuse for an abortion if that was the excuse.
Huh?
That two people had met each other, they were extremely into each other and had sex spontaneously, not entirely conscious.
Horny.
And got, as Real Raven seems to be arguing, and got pregnant. Would you say that situation was an argument for an abortion?
Not to me,
valid argument. No, you don't think so? Okay.
No.
Yeah, because you're educated and you obviously let your rationality override that. You have a grip on yourself.
Well, maybe, I'm not even sure if that's
you think about it. You thought about it,
and it's not a question of being educated. But yeah, I had a grip on myself. Yes, when I was young, I had sex with several women, but I always
you
was smart
it.
enough to make. I was smart enough to make sure that I at least had some measure of decorum.
So that's the thing. You need to be smart.
I'm not really sure if that's a question of smart.
Find another word for it. But there are people who are just careful. Okay, and what caused you to be careful?
People. I wish.
Why are you careful?
I wish that we naturally knew more about how our mind worked, and that it didn't have to be taught.
You have to be educated, and that's the thing.
That's so stupid. The way that our brains.
At the same time, this is something that. Damn it! Now I've got a problem with remembering the name. Squared Peg said a moment ago in the chat. She raised her boys knowing full well that there's a chance that one of them could get a girl pregnant, and basically she raised them by saying, "Listen, if that happens, you're going to take care of that child."
Yeah, people.
Whether you want it or not.
People.
Whether you did it on purpose or not.
People tend not to do anything. That's oh God, what's the word? I'll think of it. Just keep going. I'm sorry.
Anyway, you asked a moment ago, St. Clair, who said that legitimate rape thing.
Yes, sir.
They call it legitimate rape. I found you the screenshot. I've been sharing it for a while now. He's not the only one who said it, by the way. But yeah, I think he's the first one that actually got called out on it. It's stupid. I really think it's stupid.
I didn't disbelieve you. I legitimately wanted to see because I'd never heard that before, and I believed it. I believed you.
Oh no! Even if you disbelieve me, I don't mind showing it. Don't believe it just because I say it. Be skeptic. Anyway.
Yeah, that was clearly retarded.
I wanted to basically say something that Mod said, that Squarepack said to one of her sons. If you make a girl pregnant, you're going to take care of the child, right? Look, the thing is that child is there because of the cause of two other people's actions, right? The parents. And indeed, what he said, in the old days, it was also like there was more responsibility for your action. You had to, because you knew there was no welfare, and you had to be with the father of that baby, and the father should take care of the family because you knew that. I'm not saying that it was better back then, because as I said earlier, there was a lot of unhappy marriages, and that was the other extreme. But basically, we can't keep excusing people just because we have resources to do something, because at some point we need to say, take the damn responsibility for your actions. And on the intelligence part, I don't know, you have to be able to look a little bit in the future and think of consequences. And that's also age thing as well, what Alicia said, that basically when you 16, 17, 18, that's kind of hard thing to do for a lot of people. And don't forget that being 18 and having already a child and being, having a family, in the world for my grandparents wasn't weird. So I actually don't think we've moved on the. Maybe back then it wasn't also that much more responsibility than pressure from the society. I don't know if that makes sense, because you would walk away from it if you could, but you know you kind of don't have a life and will be disrespected, and you will be that man, that bastard who didn't take care of a child, and you will be that woman that will be, you know, hungry and have a terrible life because there was no welfare for you if you were pregnant and without a daddy, so you were forced together, and maybe just people are all the time irresponsible, just the society didn't allow certain things to be done. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Well, I'd say kids had the absolute priority there, right? You know, over anybody else.
I think we all need to be able to take responsibility. And I think we need to teach our children to be able to take responsibility. Anyway,
we need to bring the paper route back. We need kids able to do something that makes them responsible.
No, I totally agree with you. No, I totally agree.
Well,
anyway,
you will be put into prison because you're a bad parent. You know, for the what's it called, the free range parents.
I don't care about
kids
that.
go to school.
There are people who will tell you you're a bad parent because you don't want your 6-year-old to transition from boy to girl.
That's true. It's true. Holy shit, that's what's fucked up.
Terrible.
But hey,
yeah.
at least those kids aren't going to get pregnant and have an abortion.
Well, anyway, I do think we had a very good talk, even though we didn't all agree with each other. But I do feel we made a lot of points. Considering the fact that we've been busy for 2 hours, it is, again, that time that I call it quits. Does anyone want to have some famous last words? Or maybe less famous last words?
I think that the true nuclear village is and will always be Chernobyl.
I'm sorry. Fukushima is going there.
Pripyat. The name of the town is Pripyat. My mistake. That Chernobyl was the name of the plant.
You're correct. But as I said, the area around Fukushima is also contesting that now. Alicia, you've got anything to add?
Wear a condom.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a complex issue. Everybody love one another, and if your kid gets knocked up, don't kick him out of the house. That's a dick.
No, that's the thing. I mean, be there for your children, but I mean, you cannot expect your children to take responsibility if you don't teach them to take responsibility, and you cannot expect your children to take responsibility if you won't let them.
Yeah, I know how to end it. I'm glad that I have girls, because a boy could get 20 girls pregnant at the same time. Imagine that conversation. Dad, sit down. I gotta tell you something. Alicia, I got 20 chicks.
I could do you one better, Alicia. I am a male homosexual, and my demographic has a 0% abortion rate. So beat that.
And fuck, thanks, Alicia. There comes a sleepless night for me.
I know. I had to throw it out there because it's true. I only have to deal with one pregnancy at a time. You could, in theory, if you have like a really hot son that's a player, could you effing imagine that conversation? He comes home and says, "Mom, Dad, sit down. I've got good news and bad news."
Yeah, well, in all fairness, considering he's my son, there is a chance he might be a player.
Mom, Dad, it's time I teach you about the birds and the bees.
No, it's like the dog. The son comes to a father, said, "Dad, let's talk like a father with a father." That's how father to father talk.
Not good. No, from father to grandfather.
Anyway, John, you got anything to add?
Oh, hello. Yeah, I'm still here, apparently.
Yeah, you are, mate.
Yeah, I've been listening. It's much more fun.
I agree. It's much more fun when you're listening.
Anyway,
That was a joke.
That was good.
You agree with everything being said so far?
No.
Even though we don't agree with each other? John?
Oh, me? Do I? I agree with some things. I disagree with others.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Not important.
My last word.
You know, we're talking to each other, and
Yeah, it's good.
that's going to fix absolutely nothing in the world. Zero effect. So it doesn't matter.
Well, I'm not sure if it has to.
We knew that before going into this. None of Modwain's conversations have ever changed the world.
Exactly.
I
But
disagree.
It could change the world.
Yes, thank you.
Taken with the due amount of
Everybody wants.
seriousness.
This is going to be the one that brings peace in the Middle East. Yeah, I just know it.
It's not. No, that's. I'm not even going to make a joke about that. Otherwise, people will call me something homophobic again. But yeah, no, that's. I don't think.
They can do that to me all day. I'm very phobic.
I do think that there is a sentence that can bring peace to the Middle East. But I'll let you guess about what that sentence is.
We need to drop marijuana on them.
Yeah, that's not the sentence. Anyway, if you want to hang out after stream, I will tell you, but I'm not going to put it out live because people might misunderstand the fact that it's a joke when I say it.
You want to hear my last word?
You can say it off.
Yes, go on.
I'd say the best way to teach your kids responsibility is, as parents, is just stay the fuck together. Don't get divorced.
Yes. Yeah, no, done. That's a very important part. I totally agree with you. Anyway, anyone else want to say anything anymore?
Well, it's just that as long also as we remember that the subject we had today, it's really difficult and complex subject. And, you know, at some point we all might sound, I know I maybe sound like I'm taking someone's side, but there is no side. I really agree with Mob. There is no side. There is no men's fault or women's fault in it. We all need to basically, you know, chip in society, and we all need to take our responsibilities and learn to communicate about things like that in a relationship, but also educate our children. And it's not something we can talk like in relation to everyone. This is so, it's really complicated subject.
Yeah, that means that the last words are once again for me. And my last words are going to be thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, Alicia, for clearly pointing out where you come from. And I'm glad that you did push the narrative that it's not just boys, it's not just girls. But thank you, Squared, for that as well. John, Real Raven, and St. Clair, and of course my wife Short. Thank you all for joining us. It's been a great talk, and I hope to see you all next week. I'll try to have more of a shout out before we go live, because this was a very last moment live stream, but it was a great one. Thank you all for joining us, and I hope to see you all.
Thanks for having us.